What's going on, everybody? Kristian Hernandez here from Sports Video Group. We're going to the land of the honky tonk. We're going to Nashville, Tennessee. I am pleased to be joined by Elizabeth Bauer, event producer for the Nashville Predators. Elizabeth, how are you doing? How's the season so far? And how are things in Nashville?
Good. It's really warm today too, which is kind of nice. Super inconvenient when you're going to be stuck inside the venue all day, but it's
Right.
still beautiful out. It's slowly starting to get back to normal after a year of kind of being away, but very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Oddly enough, when this comes out, we'll be a year into the pandemic,
Yep.
which is crazy enough. It's flown by. And hopefully that warm weather sticks around by the time you get out of the venue so you can enjoy it a little bit. But
Yeah.
yes, thank you for hanging out with me for a little bit. We're here to talk about in-venue production and what your job is like. So we're gonna go inside Bridgestone Arena. Tell me what you guys are doing in venue wise. You guys didn't have a lot of fans at the beginning. Now you have a good amount. What are you guys doing for things that are on the board and stuff like that?
So we wanted to take an approach. It was suggested to do what you can, and we got really lucky to be able to have the support from our organization to bring every single person in the building. So all of my production staff was allowed to come back. We didn't have to cut costs on any of that. Um, and being a part of a company that values game production is really beneficial to my job and what we put out there. And so I'm really lucky that we have that support. So when it came back to starting things back up in November and December and January, there was no question asked about making sure we had a full control room and a full staff ready to go.
Right.
Because of that, we've been running a full show. We really haven't altered all that much other than kind of like the league protocols. So we can't have intermissions on ice. And we can't really do fan contests, which is a bummer because the fan first approach is something that you always want to take in like game production and in game presentation. So we've tried to find kind of unique ways of involving our crowd. So like you said, we didn't start with fans this year. We were closed to the public for I think 5 games,
Okay.
and then the health department was incredibly impressed at the way that we were handling our venue and the protocols and the safety that they allowed us to open up to a limited amount of fans. So this week we're going into the SEC tournament, and we'll have the most amount of fans that we've had in the arena since we started this season, which should be around like 3,200, I believe.
Pretty good.
And it's one of those things where I am so blessed to be in a job where we have 17,000 plus season ticket holders. Our capacity is 18.2. So I'm used to being in an arena full of just really loud, passionate fans. And it was really humbling to come back into the arena with no fans, especially because that's just like what motivates you. Like that's what gets you up every day, is like knowing you're going to like make someone really happy. So even having 2 fans in here or 20,000 fans, like you want to put on the best show possible. One, from just an entertainment standpoint, I want you to feel somewhat normal again, even though normal is not normal anymore.
Yeah.
But also just for our sanity so that we're ready to go. So it's been really exciting to kind of find creative ways because, I mean, being in game production, you have to be creative no matter what.
Hmm.
That's the best part about it. You kind of run. And one thing that's cool about game production too is it's kind of like ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is not the year to do that
Right.
at all. Everything is kind of by the book. So it's been different and difficult managing just in a completely different way. Like
Hmm.
there's managing production and there's managing entertainment, and then there's doing that with COVID on top of it.
Right.
So it definitely adds that extra layer of complication, but having an organization, like I said, that supports game production 110%, and having a really amazing group of people that we work with who want to be here, who were out for 10 months, kind of makes everything a little bit easier.
Well, you're just like the guys on the ice. You got to practice like you play. So even
Right.
if there's 2 people in there or 2,000 people in there, you got to put on the best show possible.
It's the exact same
Yeah.
thing, right?
Right. Exactly. So, Elizabeth, you teased it pretty well. SEC tournament is coming to Bridgestone
Yes.
Arena, and you're gonna get a whole lot busier doing a sport.
Mhm.
Usually it's hockey, but now we're gonna put some hoops in the arena.
Right.
How is it like? I guess not transitioning, but you're doing Predators hockey for a whole entire season, and now it's a college, a college tournament. How are you balancing kind of expectations on your end and production that you're gonna be doing in a couple days?
It's one of those things where you kind of like going back to what we were talking about before, like
Yeah.
managing with COVID and stuff. It's one of those things where you sit here like on Sunday, I was like, I just finished a 5-game homestand. I'm so tired
Right.
and I just want to like sleep for days, but there's so much you have to do. And you kind of have that moment of like pity for yourself. You're just like, I'm so tired. Like, just give
Right.
me one more minute. And then you look back to the fact that this time last year, like everything shut down.
Mhm.
It's been, like you said, almost a year. And that feeling of being like, oh, it'll just be 2 weeks. Like the tournament's
Right.
canceled. It'll just be 2 weeks. Like we'll see you in a few weeks and everything will be back to normal. And then you're gone for 10
Mhm.
months. So that tiny bit of self pity that you have for yourself goes away really fast. And you're like, no, I'm very blessed to be here and be doing what I'm doing. So the balance of trying to figure out like what's going on, and luckily the SEC is really an awesome client to have and work with. They are so trusting of what we do, and we appreciate that so much about them and their organization that it makes things so much easier. There's a, we aren't doing this and we should probably try to do this, and everyone's really understanding. I think that's probably been like the biggest takeaway from sports is everyone's a little bit more patient and understanding in an industry that is super impatient and very like reactive to stuff.
Yeah.
Everything is very proactive now. So it definitely makes things a lot easier, but it's definitely a nice change of pace. It's really kind of a bittersweet moment that it's the shock, it's been a year, but the
Mhm.
excitement that we're getting back to these events and being a part of something like this again, and knowing that these people still trust us so much after a year off that they're like, okay, good, like let's just roll with it. And
Right.
I think there's way more excitement than nerves or anxiety or frustration. It's more or less like, all right, like we are back on track. Our foundation is best, like the best it's ever been. And I think it's fun for our staff too. They love working basketball because it's just different. And
Right.
like hockey and basketball are really similar in the way that you run your game presentation. But it's just college sports are so fun and passionate, and there's so much freedom to do things that you just don't typically do. So um, trying to get as much sleep as possible when you
Yeah.
can, and just in working with everybody. I think probably one thing that's really different is like a tier system, and like
Okay.
finding time in the day to make sure you go get tested. Like I'll
Right.
finish up this today, like we'll start a meeting with them, and then I have to go get tested every day for COVID. So there's just like one of those things where you're just like, oh, those extra elements that you're not used to.
Mhm.
um I mean, we get tested right now for hockey games anyway, but there's like tier systems for
Right.
hockey and for basketball here. And like I'm in a highest tier, and some of my coworkers aren't in their highest tier because they're not having to do the different stuff that we're doing. So it's definitely makes things a little bit more complicated, but communication is key, just talking to everybody. And like I said, just being excited to
Right.
have an event in the arena when this is the event that like shut it down for us last year. So I think it's humbling, it's bittersweet, it's humbling. So excited.
Quick follow up on the production side. You're
Yeah.
so used to doing a kind of home, like a one sided production for Preds fans. Now
Yeah.
you have a tournament. You got to be somewhat neutral, right?
Right.
How are you kind of offsetting what you're used to doing on the Pred side, and now you got two teams, and you got to kind of split it down the middle. How do what's the plan for that?
One thing that's really nice about the SEC too is that because they do so much work on the front end for us, it's really just kind of like roll with what they ask.
Right.
So they do a really good job of giving like a lot of content for us, and they script out a lot of that content, but they really kind of guide their show, and we just really support it for them, which is
Okay.
definitely very weird for me. I'm a control freak, and I'm used to sitting away from my group of people and like bossing them around, and like obviously we joke about bossing around, but it's a very weird thing for me. So it's it's nice to kind of let our group kind of roll with it, and I just kind of guide everyone through it. But I think the weirdest part is the fact that we're like a southern group.
Okay.
So everyone in this control room like hides their preference on which team they're rooting for. And so it's really funny to like watch, like there's certain people in the group who are like, I can't wait to work SEC because I love Kentucky, or I love
Right. They have
UT, and I
they're
love
fist
Auburn
pumping.
and Mississippi
Yeah.
State. Yeah. And then I'm like sitting in the room, I'm like, because we get to be fans. Like
Right.
that's the best part about working in a venue. I get to
Yeah.
wear gold and I get to scream when we score a goal.
Right.
And here everyone's like having to be a little bit more quiet and reserved about it. For the most part, it's all of us on here. But it's always so funny when you see one of the guys in the back, they're like, yes. And
You're
I'm like,
right. You
yay.
gotta make sure they stay in line.
Right, exactly.
Right. Last thing, Elizabeth, before I let you go, there's a lot of people in the control room and throughout the facility that you're working with. Probably deserve a lot of kudos. Who are those individuals that you want to give a shout out to if you can?
Zach Gerhardt is one of my coworkers. He's our content manager here. He has just taken on this new role this year and really run with kind of managing the control room a little bit more. So we have to be split up into like different pods and tiers and stuff. So we're on the same
Right.
tier, but we're in different pods. So I'm used to like running around the whole building and like being in a control room and setting stuff up, and then being in my producer suite and setting stuff up and like going around the arena. But I can't spend a lot of time in the control room or run around like I used to. So Zach has stepped into this role of really managing all of that entire room as a whole. So I give him the people and he gives them their content, he gives them their machines and really sets it up. So Zach has just been, we've always been really fortunate to work with really, really great people here, but Zach has just been so instrumental in that. And then Matt Rowley, who is another one, he's been here for probably 3 years now. This is like his third season. And Matt came here straight out of college and has really grown into this role and has changed. I think he's changed his role every single year because he just gets better and learns more things. And he has like moved into like a video editor position this year. So he's creating more content than ever, especially in a year when content is key and people aren't getting that in-person experience. So he's trying to balance between doing it in the arena and doing it on social. And both of them, they keep me sane.
Yeah.
They also drive me crazy, but that's
Listen,
their jobs.
you wouldn't have it any other way, I assume. Right?
No, of course not.
Awesome.
But it's so great to work with a really great group of, I mean, there's so many people that I could name over and over and over again, but those two have just, they make my job easier, but they also make my job more fun. So I'm extremely, extremely grateful for those two guys.
Awesome. Well, Elizabeth, hopefully we can get to a time where fans are back in the, fully back, full capacity. People are
Yes.
chipping catfishes onto the ice, like the old days, old tradition out there in Nashville. But until
Right.
thank you for joining me. Continue the
Yes.
great work. Please stay safe. And hopefully when it's safe enough, I'll stop by Nashville and say hello.
Yes. We've got to bring you to Smashville as soon as possible.